Welcome to Hubcast Aidalon, the podcast where two friends take an excellent adventure into the world of Hubworld Aidalon.
Hello. Welcome to another Hubcast Aidalon. I'm Alan.
And I'm Steven.
And today we're going to talk about deck building. So, what we know about deck building is you're going to have a deck of 30 cards. Looks like 2 of is the max for cards. So at most you would have a deck of 15 different choices if you're maxing out at 2 ofs for consistency's sake, which as 2 spikes we will be. It almost seems, and I'm not positive, that it's set at 30, like no more, no less. Mm-hmm. So a lot of games is like, you could have 60 cards, but you put like 100 cards in your deck if you really wanted to. It looks like they set at 30, which will make sense because you also add to your 30 cards of a deck that you construct a choice of 6 unique agents. Mm-hmm. Which of course 3 of those need to be scored by your opponent. So it would make sense that you're set at 30 even, because that makes a deck of 36. It's 6 seekers. That's a 1 in 6 chance of any card being agent. And if you start allowing someone to make like a 100 card deck, it's like going to be near impossible to find 6 seekers out of 106 cards. So I think, in what makes sense to me, I think that's the way it is. And it also makes sense to me on a common sense level. Mathematically speaking, you need to be able to keep that consistency of being able to, it not be an impossibility to find a seeker or agent. Man, that's going to get rough.
It is going to get rough.
So that's first off. The cards that you can put in your deck require a certain color. Now, I don't know if the seekers are color dependent, like some seekers might require a certain number of pips, but the way the other cards will work is that you'll have a number of pips that are required for you to put that card in your deck. And how that works is the number of agents. So you have 6 agents. Again, they're all unique that you can put in your deck. So if you put all 6 purple agents in your deck, you can only make a purple deck. If you put 3 purple and 3 orange, you can now have a deck of purple and orange cards. If you have 2 purple, 2 orange, 2 green, you can do purple, orange, and green. That being said, the cards you can put in is, as you probably heard me a second ago say, are pip dependent. So what that means is, if I have 2 blue agents in my deck, I can only put blue cards that have a requirement of 1 or 2 in my deck. So any cards that are 3, 4, 5, or even 6 blue pips are not allowed for deck construction in my deck. The going theory is the higher the pips, the more powerful the abilities. So if you want to have like a super blue ability, you either need to be mono blue or like maybe 4 blue to really get into those high numbers. So if that's the case, and like the 6s are like super like haymaker cards, you're going to see a lot of mono go on. But if 4s are also equally good, you could, or 3s even, that you could justify needing like 2 colors. We're either going to see 2 or 1. I don't really see 3 color faction out of 4 being like a competitive thing, but I could be wrong. Again, neither of us have seen the card pool. We're just going off of what we were told from the game found and what we've seen like with the preview decks that we played. So the preview decks don't even have the pip system in them. You just get a random selection of cards and you play with it. So they don't even involve the pip system to get like that underway. But we have seen a couple like 4 and 6 pip cards spoiled during the game found campaign, and they were pretty powerful and pretty wonky in a good way. So I can see the argument of 4-2 for agents, 4 of your primary color, 2 of another one to kind of offset some things to help you do what you're going to do from another color or another faction. But I could also easily see the argument made that I just want to be blue or I just want to be purple. So I'm going to go 6 deep and just all in it. So, you know, but yes, deck building, the 6 agents you choose, their colors will denote the amount of pips you're allowed for cards in that thing. So each agent is 1 pip, or if you want to look at it in Magic terms, each agent is 1 mana requirement for deck building, because the cards themselves will have a mana requirement. This is a 3 island card, or this is a 4 forest card. So you need 4 forest agents to even think about putting that in your deck. I'm not sure, like I said, if the Seekers will be pip dependent. Maybe like some of the more powerful Seekers might be 6 pip green or something like that, because I'm all in on old money. So I don't know. We'll see as what time will tell with that. But I could easily see like maybe pip requirement for Seeker as well. Well, I'm not sure though on that. So, with that being the case, I'll turn this over to Steven now that we've gotten over like what we understand about deck building, to kind of have a little back and forth discussion, about our thoughts on that and, what we foresee going forward with that.
Yeah. So I think like with, it being like, if we're going mono color, all in, like there's definitely a strategy based on like our prior episode, just talking about the lore and kind of how there's some nuance and themes, that are, throughout each faction. And again, how each one kind of has their own strategy in the game. So I think, if we're competitively allowed to use 3, like I see how we can use all of those to balance out what's there, or the 2 things, or like using 2 factions, like to kind of give you kind of a an out for 2 different strategies there, or hopefully they synergize well with each other to where you can hopefully have an upper hand, and vice versa for your opponent. So I'm kind of excited to see what the outcome of that is, and how well, again, these factions are going to work with each other, because, one faction might not work well with any other. It might be more of a mono green, or mono concept. But to me, it reminds me of just kind of like in Magic, right? You have mono green, mono black. Each has their very strong theme of like, I'm a green stompy creature and I'm going to stomp your face, or I'm black and I'm going to sacrifice things to get ahead, or, yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting, in the long run to see, where, it goes. And again, that's just like where we're constrained, where we're not, and how far we can take our strategies, through each, deck building, and what the different decks we're going to generate, comparatively to our peers. I feel like they don't have to, but, I think it'd be interesting to see if they were just like, yeah, like all 4 faction colors, if you wanted to, but obviously you probably wouldn't make for a great gameplay, but, really to, again, have some balances, throughout your strategy. I think it'd be interesting.
I feel like if you're doing something wonky, maybe 4 faction would be there, where you're like 1, 1, 1, and then like 3 for main. So you got like, you're pulling some 1s from like the 3 other factions, but you're still gonna have a couple Haymaker cards at 3 for your primary whatever you're designating as the primary need for whatever wonky combo, OTK, whatever you might see, or so it's mill decks or 1-turn kill decks. You might see something wonky where they're like pushing the limits of what we would consider deck building, which is what you normally see in a card game anyway. Like, so I foresee that, but in my mind, just off of what we know now and what we've seen, I very often predict 2-color, maybe the predominant one 3 and 3, or 4 and 2, depending. Just because like for instance, green is all about deck building and resource generation, but then like orange is all about like obstacle building and shifting around. So those 2 could work together, because when people are trying to come after your money makers, you can shift them away to a different lane to protect them for money in the future, or setting up obstacles to, make it more costly for the opponent to go through, even if, like, oh, you thought that 3 cost obstacle was here. Now it's here. Now you gotta pay 3 or stop. So you can protect your investments and protect your or incentivize extra cost to delving against you. Could be like a helpful 2-color combination. by the same token, if purple is like the faction of sacrifice to gain advantage and push hard, having extra money so you have the money to afford the aggressive lifestyle, so purple green could work.
Yeah.
Or, if you know that you're not going to be able to afford because you're sacrificing for aggro pushes, with purple, maybe purple blue to try to get your agents in the archives, so that way you're forcing a third, like you're having to force hard choices to protect your agents because you're not affording a great grid state, but instead you're just convoluting the matter using blue to put stuff away and make them have to make more difficult choices while you're coming at them hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, I could see like doing the thing you do, you'll have a primary color, which is why I say 4 and 2 maybe, or 3 and 3. But using one other color maybe to help achieve what you're doing by adding one little slight tweak to it. Like, I'm aggro, but I'm aggro that's making you delve all 3 lanes.
Yeah.
Or I am money, but I'm also money that's taxing you constantly. Kind of like Orzhov, Black, White, and Magic, I'm gaining life, but I'm also draining your life. So it's like a twofer combo. Or like when you had Green, Red, and Magic, and it's like, yeah, I'm aggro and I'm coming at you fast with all these haste creatures, but I'm also punching you hard with these like creature enhancements in green or with bigger creatures on the back end to seal the deal.
Yeah.
So, like I see like benefit to that. But again, this is all dependent on the 6s. Like if we see some huge, like no one wants to not have a 5 or 6 card for this color faction not in their deck because it's so redonkulously good, then you're going to see mono just be the prevalent thing. If you can't walk away from your 5 or 6 because it's that good, that will strive mono development. And I don't think they've done so good with just these preview decks and what we play to balance and everything kind of doing its own thing and nothing being too powerful. It would be hard pressed for them to, unless they just want the game to be mono faction, which if that's the case, great. Or if you're not mono faction, you're really having to make a sacrifice to not be mono faction. I would get that too. So I'm not dictating what they're doing or presuming to know the inner workings of their minds, but in my mind, it seems like if you only have 4 factions, they don't even, like Magic has 5 colors. A lot of other games have 5 or 6 factions or something like that. Mm-hmm. They only have 4. That's a very limiting amount in the card game sphere that we know. And they've said in interviews that they don't really consider the idea, at least right now, in their own mind space, they don't consider that they have any future plans to add an additional faction. That would be unbalancing in its own way and a headache in its own way to have to create another faction and more lore and a whole nother subgroup. That they would more than likely be doing different and more interesting things with the 4 factions they had versus ever considering adding another faction. So that's been asked multiple times. It was asked during like a Covenant interview. It was asked in their own podcast. And both times they emphatically were like, no, we aren't anywhere near thinking on that level. That's not something we would want to do. So at least as it stands right now. So if that's the case and you only got 4 factions, I foresee that they inherently want you to kind of play with multiple colors, that life isn't just all blue, life isn't all purple. We're all not just one thing. We're a myriad of different things as people, as humanity. So I foresee like at least 2 colors being the priority. And if that's the case, that means that 4s or 3s have to be enticing enough that you can walk away from a 5 or 6. Yes, there is an advantage to being 5 or 6, but it is equally advantageous to have that 5 and 6 as it is to go 4 and 2 or 3 and 3, that you gain something equally as important. Like again, in our example, green with orange, the ability to move those obstacles and have good obstacles that orange has to protect your money and to tax my opponent of money so my money counts for more because you're having to spend a lot to do anything on my grid state, is equally as good as the super money I could make as all green. Yeah. And if those two are about equal, like you could constantly be starting your turn at 10 and having to go, oh my God, what am I going to spend my money on this turn? I'm so rich. Versus I might have 6 or 7 money each turn, but whereas in the situation of all green, you might have 6 or 7 money each turn yourself. Now you're starting each turn with like 3 or 4. So even though I'm at only 6 or 7, you're also at a lesser number because I've been costing you greatly. So your numbers are diminished too. Maybe that's an equally important thing. So like, it's a long-winded one. Sorry for that, but that's like where my mind state is, that I feel like they probably did. Again, I'm not presuming to know, but they would probably need to make sure, and they probably did, knowing how great everything we've seen they've done thus far is decision-wise, that we've talked about in all the other episodes. They probably had that trade-off. Like, you can go 6, and it is a good decision, but 2 colors or maybe even 3 colors, I don't know what the goal would be. Like, should be an equal choice in your mind, and that's a whole nother deck building decision.
Yeah, and to the one thing is we just haven't seen the cards that they have for those for each faction. So it's like, depending if they do go with the decision of doing mono faction, decks, then, like what depth of cards do we have to pull off our strategies, and which one's going to prevail? I doubt, in my personal opinion, that would be the case, but at the same time, right, it's still a possibility for us to keep in the back of our mind.
Well, they'll be available, because they did say that with the Game Found set that you could build any of the 4 colors a complete mono faction deck. How good that is, they did not say, and that, they could think it's all 4 of those decks are equally good if you mono-colored them, but what they can do and then what the meta becomes, because it's inevitable. No matter how well designed you make a game, the players will dictate what the meta is, and
they'll find it. They'll find what works best.
What works best, or what they like best, because it doesn't even matter if there's a better deck out there that the creators foresaw that you would make. If no one else sees that deck or makes that deck or learns about that deck, then I guarantee you what decks are doing better are the decks that then dictate the meta. And we've heard from designers in the past in Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon that, we thought when we made this faction X, Y, or Z were going to be the top decks, and then GDF, became these decks that we didn't even think were going to happen.
Yeah.
And how many, in my intense gaming experience, I'll turn this over to you and let you rant a little bit about this, but I can tell you from my experience how many times, and I've been the person that's developed a couple of these decks, a set comes out and someone creates a deck that no one foresaw, and then you need a couple bans and erratas, because guess what? There's a deck that's just running roughshod over the meta and the environment, and it becomes a situation of do you play the winning deck, the deck that beats the winning deck, or some weird jank that you hope will get through and not have to play the winning deck for majority of your games. So
yes, my most common experience with that is in Magic the Gathering. We've had so many cards that have been released, and again, it's not that the R&D department wasn't maybe checking over the cards as much, but again, we humans try to find the cards that are going to have the best outcomes or the best strategy to win. And sometimes, again, we find, combos or, cards that create broken strategies. I even remember too, when you're playing in draft, for example, or a limited draft, I've seen people pull out some of the jankiest combos with 3 or 4 colors, and it's like, how in the world are you pulling this off? But they're doing it. They're making it work. They're finding the strategy behind said cards. And I think too, like, just how everyone's mind, like you said, and how your thought process of like, this is how I would build a deck based on, you know, the cost of each thing, and you know, you go with a 6 cost thing if that exists, and 3, and how many 3s, how many 2s, you know, so on and so forth. And I think too, like, every strategy has its, its course, right? When you think about control, you want to control the board state, yet slowly creep and take over. And then you've got you're more aggro, like hit them first before they hit you. And then you've got more of your, hey, I'm just gonna create a wall, and you can't get over this wall, and there's no way, you're going to get over it because I've built it so well. Or by the time you even crack it, you know, it's already game over. So I think, depending on, you know, how future cards that are released, play out, I think it's going to be interesting to see what you do. But I know that when those happen, it's like when those broken combos are found and there's really nothing you can do about it, it just leaves for a negative play experience. And, I just hope against hope, because again, I think they wowed me so far with how the game is, that they're being very, very cautious on their R&D of things, of making sure that those don't happen. But if they do, right, how quick are they to respond to said bans or erratas? And if not, like, you know, how is that going to leave the meta for a while? Especially think about the rotation of sets, you know, being every 6 months. Like, this is going to be 6 months, so well, you know, I'm just going to have to either, you know, grit my teeth and bear it until that's either rotated or until something fresh comes out to counter that. Or are we going to end up in a situation where there's much, you know, to do with, with different combos, and maybe we're just, you know, there's going to be a combo that's better than the last, and, you know, the combo that was just as broken then is, you know, kind of, you know, old news, you know, who cares about that? But ultimately, I think when you have things that pop off as quickly as they do, is it really feels like when you're playing the game, you know, in the deck building sense, after you've built your deck, or at least the preview decks we've played, right? No one's getting like a crazy advantage when they're playing, so much so that it feels like they're pulling away, you know, ahead for the win. Most, you know, every game that we play, I feel like we've gotten really close. Like, if it wasn't me getting his agent, or vice versa, like, it would have been the next turn. I think there's a very balanced, way to design a game. And again, that's something that, like, while it is sometimes painstaking to do, we just need to make sure that, as a game, and I'm sure that they are,
well, in all honesty, that was asked and answered in previous interviews as well. It turns out they said that we'll be actively monitoring the game and making decisions on the fly and communicating with us when and if there ever is a problem there, which is going back to the LCG history lessons. That was always a problem, because no one wants to know that they bought a full play set of cards, but there's cards that you just can't play with in that set because there's no intrinsic value other than your ability to play.
Yeah, I was wasting my money on these cards.
Yeah, and errata's become that much harder too, because again, like, when you're constantly printing the set out because it's money and boosters, you can print out new versions of that card with the errata on it, but it can be very difficult in an LCG like style game when you need to errata a card, change how it's worded, you know. Because it's not like these cards are floating. The new cards will be easy to find. People are going to keep their entire playset. They don't want to have to buy another card. So how do you get everyone the new errated card in their hand? Or do you just have to assume everyone knows it? But then that can become a problem at tournaments, organized play, because a new player just bought his new set and he's so happy. He shows up at the tournament. I'm sorry, those cards don't work that way. I have to show you this. And that could be a negative experience for that new player. So you don't want to have to errata in this format where you're getting all the cards so you feel like more invested in the cards you have. You don't want to have to errata or ban cards if you can help it. And I get that, but you can also not let something run rampant over a scene either. Like, I also get that.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's a fine line, but we do have a promise of keeping active eyes on the organized play and whatnot from them. So I do think, in hope that they will do it like you said, but they have said that they would, so that is at least an endorsement instead of just blind faith. We can take them on their word for that, and everything they've done thus far has been pretty on point. They've kept to their word and they've been honest and upfront, which gives credence to that should do what they said they would do. So.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're really just stand by, everything that they do. So as long as, they're continuing to, again, stand by that and hopefully painstakingly, looking over their R&D, for future sets, 6 months of a lead time to go through that. Like you said, hopefully if, and hopefully not when, hopefully it just never, occurs, right? At least that's like, a dream world, in a perfect world, right? They never have to get to that point. But if so, right, like you said, the quickness in the response time of how long are we going to make this become an issue is, or are we just going to, what recourse, how are they going to solve that when that occurs? But I know, again, that's kind of more of a, an if, and, just, we'll have to wait and see, how they respond. So.
And one thing that's been interesting from their response is, at least up front with the launch of the game, which again is projected for 2027, the beginning of 2027, they have stated that as of right now, and I mean, this could change. I mean, we got a long haul to 2027, so things change. You and I both know that. Well, very well. I mean, we've both been through a pandemic and up and down financial situations with the economy being what it is. Life change on a dime. Just look at the tariffs right now. Good Lord. So that'll date it for anyone watching going on right now. Yeah. But as it stands right now, they do not have an organized play plan, and they're not saying they do not care about organized play. I know Andrew better than that, just from hearing him talk and everything he's done thus far. But what he wants in his goal, at least as far as it's been said, is he wants to see it be a more community driven thing. He wants to let the players kind of dictate what they want to see from organized play and let it kind of grow more organically instead of just being up front. This is how it is. Bam. No, this is how you play our game in a tournament setting, and you don't have any. He wants to see what people come up with and kind of gather intelligence, see what people enjoy, and then maybe follow through from there, which I get and I can understand, because this is again a grand experiment. He's trying to achieve what no one in genre has been able to achieve yet, a long-standing, surviving LCG, whatever the term is. Mm-hmm. So I get that he wants to make sure this is done right. In organized play, side tangent rant time, organized play for a customizable card game, TCG, LCG, whatever. If it's a card game and it's 1v1 and there's any kind of like, I'm trying to beat you into the ground element to it, organized play is, my hot take, 75% of whether that game will succeed or not. And that is because at the end of the day, the only way you're going to have two situations. You're going to enjoy playing your friends around the kitchen table. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that's all they want. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But inevitably, one player in that group is going to start getting way better because they either play a lot of games more than their friends, or they just naturally come to playing that game better than their friends. It clicks in their head better. They understand the game better. Pick your reason. Doesn't matter what the reason is. But they start getting better. Well, then playing their friends, they're always winning. And either two things are going to occur at that moment. Either they're fine with that and it is what it is, whatever. Well, I guess three things. Or they just don't stop playing the game as much because it's no fun. Because all they do is win. It's not hard for them. It's just too easy. Or it is too easy, so they look out to go to different play environments, go to tournaments against people that are much harder to play than their friends, or go to different, like, local communities at their different game stores to try to find new players that they haven't played before to add excitement to it. Take your pick for where they go, but they start trying to seek out community to gain that challenge that they've lost in their small little friend play group. And many players will do that. And that's why you have communities at game stores, so you can play new players that might be playing decks that you've never seen before, give you new experiences you haven't had before. You will go to tournaments to hone your skills and get even better, and probably look forward to actually losing or feeling like you're going to lose at any given time for the first time in a while because you're always beating your friends. Or you just are like us too, we're spikes. Again, not apologetic about it. Nothing wrong with anyone that's not. But we like winning. We like getting better and upping our power level. And as such, the only way you do that is constantly find new, more difficult players to play. And you know where most of those are going to be found? At a tournament. You know how the enjoyment of a tournament is everyone is trying to murder everyone. Everyone's trying to be the first place player. They're trying to win the trophy. So because everyone is giving it their all and coming with everything they have, you get the hardest games you'll ever have, which teach you the more about how to play the game better, which make you a better player. And hopefully you lose a few games and you go, yay, I finally lost some games. Now I can, figure out how to fine-tune my skills that much better so it doesn't happen again. So that's my rant and organized play is the vehicle that lets you do that, because without an organized system of play, it can fall apart very easily. We lost so many card games, LCGs and other card games, TCG, CCGs during the pandemic, because without the ability to go and play in front of other people didn't want to buy those games because that was a huge thing for them. I want to be able to find other people and play them, and we're all stuck inside. So guess what I'm not doing while I'm stuck inside? Spending money on games that I can't go outside and find other people to play. In many games, their sales tank during that time period because of that. At least that is my opinion, my hot take. And so I think it's really huge. And I'm not saying you have to be like Magic the Gathering. We got this pro league and we pay our pro players $1,000 to show up at a tournament. And I'm not saying you gotta go crazy like Magic or anything, or we need to have $1 million tournament like Pokemon once a year. First place wins $1 million. I'm not saying all that. I'm just saying you need to have a system in place that dictates how a tournament should run, the format for the tournament. And I'm not even saying that the company needs to provide like promos or play mats or anything like that either. No, I'm just saying there needs to be a system in place that people know how I can interact with other people and get better at the game.
Yeah.
And it could be as much as what they're doing, which is they want to see what we want first. I like that. And when they know what the average, the majority of us are looking for in organized play, they can respond accordingly. And I think that's cleverly done because, again, no other LCG style like competitive game has been like in the long term, like hugely financially like bam, like that was a great idea. I mean, they've had their moments, ups and downs, and overall have survived to a certain point, but none of them were like upsetting the apple cart and being like the new hot thing and something that everyone's like, oh my God, you got to get into this game. They were all niche. They were all kind of in their own groups, and it was hard to grow them. And if players started growing out of it because they have kids or they're in their 40s like me, but decide gaming's not for them anymore because life's got too much responsibility. Okay. And second side tangent, I'm just going off on it today. I think it's like 3.5% bleed off is your expected amount in a customizable card game TCG. So 3.5% of your player base is going to quit the game yearly. So you as a company need to convince that many people, if not more, to join the game new and spend money into the game So you're not losing or staying even. So, 100 people, 3.5 is 3.5. So we'll say 200 because that's at least 7 people. So you have 200 people playing your game. 7 people are going to quit by the end of the year and quit playing your game and no longer spend money on it. So you should, at a minimum, look to convince 7 people to buy into your game. But if you're doing a good job, your goal is 14. You're at least 7 up from where you were. You're not breaking even, you're increasing, obviously that's really low numbers and just a silly example, but that's at least what you're looking for as a company. So if your game is extremely niche and not a lot of people know about it, that's really hard to do. So I'm not saying that Earthborn should be expected again to be the next Magic killer, but to a degree they need to be accessible to a wide range of people. And I think that their simple rule set that's got depth and complexity in play, but not depth and complexity in rule set. There's not 17 pages of rules that you have to memorize. There's a quick page, maybe 2, of rules, but then learning to play good is the complexity. Like chess. I can teach someone chess in like 30 minutes and they'll play chess. Mm-hmm. That's not a problem. Playing good chess, that's a lifelong pursuit of constantly honing your skills. And I feel like this is in the same vein, so off my high horse about organized play, but in general, that's like my hot take on it and why it's so important. A lot of people don't value organized play, but it's the vehicle that keeps people engaged with your game, because when it's a 1v1 game, you need to find someone to play against. And knowing that there's tournaments, there's weekly casual tournaments at your local game store. There's every once in a blue moon, a bigger tournament held somewhere else. Or you could go to this big gaming convention. There'll be a huge tournament because the company is there, like at a Gen Con or an Origins, and they're going to run this bigger tournament for people to enjoy and meet together while enjoying their love at this board gaming convention or whatnot. All those are important elements that bring in a sense of community, give you the opportunities to find these games you're looking for, and give everyone that sense of communalism back into the company that's creating the game and the community that's playing it. So,
yeah. And I couldn't agree more. I think that community aspect, if you ever think about it, that competitive play is where you usually meet a lot of new people, especially when maybe your friend group's kind of burn out, especially if you're that person who's, really been trying to hone their skills in that one game and they're just, kind of tired of it and you're not getting the same enjoyment out of it. So if you go and seek out again, a challenge, a higher challenge, or someone who you've never met before and probably just equally as challenging, that's where, again, like you said, it has that want to come back in that positive net player experience where, even if you do lose or if you fail in beating them, right, it's all going to eventually, come back full circle. And you might be frustrated at first, but it's a positive frustration that, again, encourages you or goads you to keep coming back to the game. And again, if you don't have that organized play or that engagement, the game's just going to fall apart. And it's right. So maybe the game was bad. It's just, again, we aren't getting that social engagement. And again, building that community and keeping community alive because of said organized play.
Right.
But I couldn't agree more.
This will be my last bit of the history of LCGs today, and it'll get us to our last topic, and that was what I call the best organized play structure I have ever seen in my life, and that was the original FFG customizable card game it was for LCGs, but their competitive side, their tournament structure that they did back in the day. And I would advocate for this. I would die on this hill. Like, it is so good that I would say this. I've never seen anything better. So originally the way it worked is like, let's say in this, I couldn't remember the exact, so I'm just going to give a broad example for purposes. This isn't the exact way it worked because I don't remember the month to month structure of it, but we'll say for 3 months, January, February, and March, you would have what was the beginning of the tournament circuit. And that would be the store championships. So every store could run a store championships tournament for their store. And whoever was the winner of that store championships got a special prize, which was you could go to a regional tournament. You only got one of these prizes. Like, that was the important thing. I couldn't go to every store in my local area and rack up like 5 or 10 of these prizes. You only got one per season. But if you won a store championship, at least one, you could go to a regional during the regionals competition scene, which was a later time, and you would get a bye in the first round that was considered against a player that went all wins minus you at X and 1. So the only loss for that person would be you in the first round. So that way, in case there was a tie later on, it was a high weighted like strength of scheduling, so you could probably win the tiebreaker because of that. So they thought about that far. So you could do that. And so January, February, March would be that. Then April, May, June would be like the 3 months for the regionals, and any game store or group that, you know, had the backing of a game store behind them. So that way, you know, FFG knew you were serious, could apply to be the regional for that region of the U.S. Like there would be a Southeast regional, Midwest regional, Northeast regional, you know, so on and so forth, part of the U.S. And during that 3 months, you knew those 3 months were set aside for regionals, and the regionals will be held all over the U.S. If you won a regional tournament, you again got the prize that you could go to a national tournament, and you would have a bye in the first round against an X and 1 opponent. And so then nationals would occur, like the U.S. national, the European, like France national, UK national, so Canada national, wherever the game was popular and they could actually produce a good national. And that would be allowed like 2 months. So let's say July, August, and maybe it was 2 months for the others. Instead of 3, maybe it was January, February, and March was like a reprieve month. But I'm not positive. But regardless of the exactness, the goal was you knew that these months were set aside for that, then these months were set aside for that, and then nationals would occur in the next 2 months. And that anyone that won a national, you could go to the World Championships, and again, you would be given a bye in the first round against an X1 opponent. It doesn't guarantee you'll win the tournament. All it does is it sets you, the one problem, like we talked about with competitive players in the last one, is the problem of the very first round. Yeah. And this guaranteed that you could go to a major tournament and not have to worry about the first round. You could literally walk around and enjoy, you know, watching people play the game and just relax and take it easy knowing that you won-owed this tournament. So the hard part is over. Now you just got to play. And as a competitive player, it was a huge reward, more than any trophy or plaque you could give me, knowing I could go to the next level. Yeah. 1-0.
No, it is. Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge. But so, and then at the very end in December, at the beginning of December, so it didn't conflict with like Christmas or what anyone was trying to do during the holidays, sandwiched right nicely in between the Thanksgiving season and the Christmas season, like December 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, you know, relatively at the beginning of December, they would hold the world champs at their corporate offices in Roseville. God, I'm so bad at certain memories. Minnesota, though. It was pretty much near St. Paul, Minnesota. And I would go to that. And it would be this big celebration. They would have live streaming of the matches, and you just felt like it was this huge event. And because all your friends that you'd met in regionals and whatnot, a lot of them would be there. It was like end of the year Christmas party with all your gamer friends playing like these competitive card games.
That's cool.
So it was fun in and of itself. And then you knew come January, start of the new year, you're back at the tournament season again, start of the season, store championship. The reason I say that this was the greatest organized play ever is because whereas Magic, it's kind of based off of, okay, a set releases, now we're going to have a major tournament celebrating this set and we're doing this and that. It's kind of all over the place. It's chaotic. Or a lot of other places it's chaotic. We're going to have a world champs, but we announce it every year it's at a different place or it's at a different, month or a different day or whatnot. Like, you knew as a person that at the time I wasn't making a lot of money, like where I am now at a college with a college job making better money. At the time, it was helpful to know I need to save some money to go to my local stores in my local state, maybe go to 3 or 4 of those. I'm going to do that January, February, March, if it was 3, I don't know. We're going to go with the 2-month example, January, February. Then I can, save my money and prep in March. I'm going to go to 1, maybe 2, whereas I might have gone to more store championships. I maybe go 1, maybe 2 regionals, depending on, how well I do at the first one or if I think I could win one on the second one, whatever. And I'll do that in April and May. More than likely, the national championship will be at Gen Con. So I already got a con, the one con I want to spend money on to go to that year. Congrats. That's where I can go to my nationals. It's 2 for 1. Save some money that way. My national tournament is my con experience for the year. And then usually World Champs was in December. But I always knew these are the months it would happen because it was preset to that. So I know where I'm saving my money, where I'm spending my money to go to these tournaments. It was clear.
Think ahead or
a year ahead. I already know, I could tell my significant other, hey, I'm probably going to want to spend 3 or maybe 4 Saturdays during this 2-month period going to a tournament. Is that okay? Can we plan that out? You'll know about it in advance. I'm not surprising you going, hey, surprise, I want to go away to Bob's card store this Saturday. Yeah. It's not a surprise to my family. It's not a surprise to anyone else. I already know about it. The money can be allotted for it. It's not surprise, I want to spend an extra $30 for a tournament entry fee this weekend or $20 or whatever. It's known well in advance that this is the 2 months that it's probably going to happen in. Same for the regional. I'm probably going to want to travel to 1 regional during this 2 months, sweetie. Let's do that. Can I save the money for that? Is this okay? Can we, afford it? I'm going to want to do this. This is where the nationals will be, can we do that? Is that okay to do? And then they know at the beginning of December, I'm going to want to make a trip to the headquarters to go to this world championship, and that I'll get friends and we'll split a hotel room and, make it as economical as possible, whatever. But you have that ability. It's not surprise every year and you're kind of scrambling to find the money or figure it all out, find the time. Not everyone is not all about money. Some people it's just time, having the time to do that. You gotta, we only have so much PTO, you and I, can we afford it? I know now this is what it's going to be on what days it's going to be. I can plan that out. And maybe I don't need to spend as much PTO if it's always on a Saturday at this game store, whatever. I don't have to, maybe I only need to spend it a day for regional season, a day for the world championships to get up there. And, I was already planning to spend this time off to go to this convention. So that's 2 for 1 again. That's why I considered it the greatest, because it respected the player base enough to go, hey, we're doing this so you can plan around for it monetarily, time-wise. And then the second thing I loved about it, and I went long-winded on this, so I'm sorry, but, is that it engaged every level. You have certain, as you know, elite players that won't show up at Friday Night Magic because they only want to spend their time with good players.
Yeah.
That's just, I always win at my local game store. I don't want to do that. I don't want to involve myself with the local community. I'm an elite pro player. I only want to play when it matters. I hate that, by the way. That is dumb. Just personal opinion on that, dumb. But you have those players. But if the store championships are giving you a bye to regionals, you know who shows up at store championships? Everyone, including those guys. It incentivizes everyone to play at the local level to support brick and mortar stores, which they should. Mm-hmm. They should completely support local brick and mortar stores. It's giving you a place to play and a community to be a part of, then you shouldn't be buying on Amazon unless that's all you got. There's nothing in your local town you'd have to drive an hour away. I get that. I'm not trying to belittle anyone that needs to buy at a Walmart or needs to buy at a Target or, Amazon. I'm just saying, if you can, and your local store is a good group of people that supports the community and helps you with your game, you should be helping them back too. It's tit for tat, because trust me, if you're not, they may not be able to afford to keep their doors open and you don't have a space to play. Yes, you might be able to find a IHOP that'll let you and your friends meet up every Saturday to play or whatnot, but it's nowhere near the same level of community and engagement that you're going to be getting from brick and mortar.
100%.
So that structure, incentivizing store level as the primary level and giving them a dedicated time window, like you have these 2 months, and then giving them the ability to maybe get a lot of people in for a big event. They can apply if they want to for regionals and be their regional location and get people to travel all over from that region to play in it, or maybe even outside that region. I played in regionals that weren't in the Southeast. When I was in the Southeast, I traveled to the Southeast regional, sure, but then I might travel to the Midwest regional because it's only 4 hours, maybe 5 hours away, and I wanted to play in another regional, hone my skills. And so that whoever that store was running it, they got my business, they got me, and maybe they impressed me enough that I know every time I'm in that state and that city, I might go by and try to buy something from them because they were really cool and they held this regional that I really enjoyed. So I feel like it supported brick and mortar in ways that I haven't seen. Now, yes, they offered like play mats and stuff like that, but that wasn't the part of that organized play structure that I'm touting as what was good about it. The structure of the months and how they gave you that buy for the next round incentivized high level players to play locally. It incentivized everyone to have something, and it encouraged, if you won your store championship, you may not have had any intention of playing a regional. You just wanted to play. Yeah. Now you're like, maybe I should go to the regional. I get a buy in the first round, so it goes both ways, I guess.
Yeah. And again, it promotes kind of this year round, cycle play, right?
Yeah.
And maybe there's a upward trajectory I'm trying to take, whether I was just casual and now maybe I want to be more competitive. Even if I just came to the store championship just to, experience it for myself. Like I know I've won, some game day, tournaments and Magic the Gathering, and I got like a really cool play mat for it. But, either way, it was still an awesome experience. It's something that I still treasure to this day. I still have the play mat. I even have it framed. I enjoyed it so much. So it's just, I think those experiences too really do add to the community and especially brick and mortar, right? I think, just again, having people walking through your doors as, a card store or a game board store or a comic book store, and, what have you, is really important. Just again, get that foot traffic and really, help support those stores. But again, like you said, margins are already slim enough, we've talked about in prior episodes.
So yeah, I just, that's, I guess, our take on it. We're about to hit an hour here, so I'll hop off that pedestal or that soapbox. But to just summarize, again, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying what they give stores to promote the game is the important part, that they need to spend money on mats or alternate art cards or any of that. I do not believe that for a second. Mm-hmm. Those can be helpful tools, and I'm not saying they don't have their place, but the thing that I was advocating for here was like a structure that isn't just, we're going to host a world championships or we're going to host a national championships and a world championships, was the having that store championship to region to national to world like format that was preset to time period, so everyone knew what was expected of them in a tournament season. There wasn't guesswork involved or randomization. I don't know what it'll be. I guess I'll figure it out. You knew at least a window. It's going to be January, February, whatever, so on and so forth. That it allowed a respect to the player base enough and encouraged involvement at the store level. That's what I'm advocating for. And when I say that this was the greatest design system ever, is it respected the player's time and the player's money, while at the same time incentivizing playing in your local environments and encouraging local environments to get more involved with a higher level of play, the regional, to possibly give them higher sales for a bigger event opportunity if they so desired it. Because if you didn't want to do a regional, you didn't fill up for it, or for whatever reason, you just didn't apply. You weren't roped into it. Like, they only accepted applications from stores that were willing to do it, that wanted to do it. So it wasn't even like it was like, you have to do this thing if you want prizes from it was none of that. It was like completely voluntary. So like, that was my thing. I liked that structure the most. And again, my advocation for that is for Earthborn. If they decide Alan knows what he's talking about, we literally like the cut of his jib, is not for them to create prizes. Just the structure of that, like that solid structure that gave everyone an understanding of what to expect, was very nice, because you always knew what you were going to plan for the following year. It respected that so much that it made it very easy for you to understand what you could do and when you could do it, that you didn't have to worry about upsetting the apple cart in your personal life, in your financial life. And it allowed you to just have a better grasp on knowing where things would be in the future, which is a load off my mind.
I agree. Yeah, helps plan ahead. I'm a planner, so for me that's very important.
Right. So anyway, thank you all if you for making it this far, hearing what turned out to be more of an Alan Rant show. So I apologize for that, Stephen.
Okay.
You know, I have a lot of thoughts about organized play as someone that's been playing organized play card games since about 16, let's say 17, because I'm about to be 42. So that'll be, 5 makes 22. So 25 years of playing organized play, TCGs, CCGs, LCGs. I have a lot of thoughts about what I've experienced over 25 years, what I like, what doesn't work, what does work, what I find. And so that was at one point in my life what I considered like the most relaxing and enjoyable, organized play that I've ever had, because I never had to worry about what I needed to do when I needed to do it. It was just laid out in front of me and easy to follow. You do this and you're good. I'm like, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think your experience speaks volumes, right? Especially for someone that, again, has been in an industry like that and really just seen how, again, on a personal level that affects you. And again, the other systems that have been put in place from other companies where it's like, you've seen that this one seems to have stood out the most and really been like, helpful to you and personally, so that way you're able, hopefully maybe this like could possibly, I'm not saying they have to do this, but it translates to a better play experience overall, maybe if it were to be implemented, or if other companies implement this in general. So again, do not worry. I again, wise words coming from a very experienced person, so it's refreshing here, honestly.
So thank you very much for watching. We really appreciate it. Till next time, when you get to hear our elevator pitches for new players. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Hubcast Aidalon. From everyone involved, we appreciate your continued support and wish you a great day and a wonderful week.